Well, after the announcement by James White at Pro Tour Singapore, we know that Project Blue is somehow evolving. So if the format is going to become a brand new thing called Silver Age, let me give you a couple of heroes that I think are really standing out as I'm playing the format. So funny story, I actually played this format last night. My armory hosted a Project Blue event and 14 people showed up, and it was 4 rounds instead of 3, and it went way longer than I expected it to, but I had a blast. So I want to talk to you about what I experienced, and I think some heroes that are really towards the top of the tier lists as you were. This is mostly conjecture and what I've played. I've played about 50 to 60 games, both in paper and online. So let me talk you through what I'm thinking of the format so far. I like the format overall. I think it's fun. It's a really great entry point into the game, and it lets the heroes feel a little bit more like themselves because, of course, you're adding rares in there. And I, last night, went 4-0 on Casai. Casai, yes, that's right, Casai. And it was a blast. She is very strong. She's the deck that I've tested the most in this format, and she's very good as far as just pivoting from the Project Blue deck into Classic Constructed or vice versa. I really only splashed in a couple of extra attack reactions, and she has the capacity to play a very strong mid-range game plan. She can play a little fatiguey if you want to, but she can also put like 15 damage turns together, and that's exactly what I did on multiple occasions. I think Casai is doing quite well, and she has some great matchups overall compared to some of the more purely aggressive heroes or purely controlling heroes. She can kind of thread the line and answer most things, and yes, I did indeed go 4-0. The final game was a little bit of an interesting one because it was up against my buddy Quest, who played on Briar, and we came down to like 1 versus 1 essentially. I was at 2 and he was at 7, and I attack reacted, and we both assumed that 4 was blocked with and that I over attacked, or I pumped it past to deal exactly 7. Turns out he was actually alive at 1. We missed it, and we could have played a couple of extra turns, and it probably would, we don't really know which way it would have gone, because he would have ended up at 1 with me at 2, and he had a 2-card hand. So it really could have gone either way from there. We kind of screwed it up. So he and I both, I guess, walked away feeling like we had 3.5 wins on the day because we kind of screwed it up. But don't sleep on Briar. Cheerios Briar with Nimby and Nimbleism and Jack being nimble is insane. This deck can put some ridiculous numbers on the board, and if it's left unchecked, I think this could be a contender for one of the best aggro decks in the format because it just puts so much damage on the board. And in a format where you don't have defense reactions, at least no of the generic defense reactions, you can do some insanity with Briar. She can really just pop off, and your opponent can't really deal with 4 into 4 into like just insane numbers, right? So like I said, I played yesterday against Quest. I'm calling this deck a 4-0 deck as well. And Casai, in my opinion, is doing quite well, but I think she's going to have trouble into decks that she can't disrupt because Casai doesn't have disruption, and Briar requires disruption. And someone that can provide that is a hero like Oldham or a hero like Terra. Either of these heroes can provide some splashing of disruption, but specifically Oldham, who is available to be played and to splash out there. Having ice in this format, especially a defensive hero with ice, is very good. And in fact, this is actually my one worry about the format, is like talented Guardian heroes, them having such an expansive card pool and having such quality cards, not even considering Guardian Mastery Pack, like they may just rule the roost. Like I said, Briar is probably the best aggro deck. Maybe you're looking at, like some Aurora or something like that, but looking at a hero like Oldham that can force Briar to pitch an entire card just to play an entire card when that deck is mostly reds and a smattering of yellows, this really kills the Briar deck if anyone shows up with like ice or Oldham specifically in any form or facet. I would put Icelander on here as well. I do think Icelander is a very potent hero because of that fact. If your meta overall is looking like they're gonna just be running like Cheerio style lists or lots of reds with no consideration for pitching or anything like that, then Icelander's another great option because Aether Icebane is available in this format, which is just crazy. But I am considering that they may go look at like the Guardian card pool, the Ice card pool, the Earth card pool, and make a few more changes because a full fatigue, full block out, like have the hammer at the end might be what rules the roost in the format. So Oldhim could just be the best deck, and that is a little bit scary if you wanted a like a fun and interactive format. But an interesting combo and an interesting counter to this, I should say, is Olympia. I was playing on Talishar yesterday, in fact, because I was doing some final like checks on the deck that a couple of decks that I wanted to play. Olympia, Great Axe Olympia with a bunch of his own defensive tools might just have the edge in that matchup. So maybe they don't have to make changes, these major like wide sweeping changes to the format. Maybe they just run Olympia out there with Great Axe and you let the fatigue decks fight each other. It's kind of like a Godzilla movie where you let Godzilla kill Mothra for you so you don't have to bother. Wait, Mothra was good, right? Usually Mothra was good. Correct me. No, Mothra was not good. No, wait. Mothra was good. I don't remember. Oh my God. I'm leaving this in because I need someone to correct me. It's been so long since I've seen the old school kaiju movies. But I always felt like Mothra helped Godzilla. And then, whatever. Anyway, Olympia is Godzilla, or no, is Mothra, maybe? I don't know. There's an analogy in there somewhere. Someone finish the analogy in the comments below. Help me out desperately while I film and do all of this live, including the card changes. But I do think that he has a capacity to play defensively and to play Great Axe and to actually be quite successful. You could say that about many of the warriors. Like you could do the same thing for Dorinthia. And so be it, if you want to do that. But I like the idea of him having wager effects and being able to like wager and play that out there. The fact that Great Axe just exists for Warrior means that you could probably pivot a deck to be more Great Axe specific and actually run it out there and maybe beat those fatigue decks. But here's another answer to a lot of the heroes, and it was one that was played yesterday. Aelia with Dominate can do some nutty things with a lot of these new arrows and some of the new pumps, right? Aelia has the capacity to put 16 Dominate, 13 Dominate, 14. In fact, I played against Aelia last night. My buddy Chris played Aelia, and like the first 3 turns of the game were like 16 Dominate, 13 Dominate, 12 Dominate. And I'm like, it's a good thing I had practiced into Aelia as like CC level Kasai so much because I knew what to expect and I knew how the game was going to go. Because if I'm not blocking the way that I was blocking the entire first 3 turns of the game, I'm just dead because he just goes so much damage into so much damage, and it's getting like better and almost more consistent with more pumps and more of these big arrow, like 0 for 5 arrows or off of the gloves, a dry powder shot. This card's insane. This card's so good from High Seas. This is the type of card that I was really excited to see High Seas bring to bear because it really pumps up the entire Ranger class. It's just a good arrow that everyone can dip into if they have any way to put it face up into the arsenal. So I do think that Aelia has some legs in the format and it can get over some of those defensive decks because it does have the capacity to just say dominate. So if they're not arsenaling their defense reactions, your Guardian defense reactions and things like that, or your warrior ones in Steelblade Shunt. If they're not arsenaling those, then you're getting around with a bunch of extra damage and a couple of maybe on hits and things like that. So maybe Aelia has the capacity to go over the top of those decks, but time will tell. And of course, you can't get out of one of these like low rarity formats without talking about Ira Crimson Haze. Ira has a lot of tools at her disposal, and the fact that she has the +1 just stapled on means that she can just play that mid-range fatigue game plan better in many ways than Kasai, even though if you know how to play it, Kasai versus Ira is actually pretty awesome. It's a pretty great matchup. It really comes down to like player skill and decision making. It feels fantastic, but she could be the best mid-range hero in the format, just being able to get that extra value over the long game. And again, the format is so cheap, you can build every deck I just mentioned. 1, 2, 3, even I splashed Aurora in there for like 20 seconds. 4, 5, 6, 7. You can build all of these decks for under $100. You could have 8 decks for this format for under $100. How do I know? I built all of these decks at some point and I got them to about $10 to $12. It's really cool. That is one of the biggest selling points of this format. I think it is a step up from Commoner. I think you do feel more like the hero you're playing. You have more spice in your deck lists. You have more flexibility to build new things. You can even heck play Dromai. We could go on and on. Heck, I didn't even mention Riptide. Riptide's the second most played deck of mine that I've played in this format. And Riptide's really good, partially because he does some very similar stuff to what Aelia does, but he gets around the end game issue of not even being able to like drop an arrow into the arsenal to fire it, because he has the ability to drop it in if you play a trap or if you play a pump on your own turn. So like I think Riptide's really good as well. I think there are like a ton of heroes in this format that are playable. I think if you get super sweaty, of course, these heroes are all going to stratify out into their own tier lists and things like that, into their slots. But overall, I think the format's great, and I really encourage you to pick it up and play it. I would have loved to see them do something early with this format and say, hey, we're going to release this in 2026, but check it out at skirmish season. That would have been great. Do a blitz and this and LL. Like, crack shuffle play is fine, I guess. It's fine. I guess it coincides with the release of Guardian Mastery Pack, so at least you have that going for you. But I think these are some great decks and some great heroes to keep your eyes out for. And if you want lists for any of these heroes, let me know in a comment below. Maybe I'll make separate videos about those so that you can consume them at your leisure. If you enjoy this type of content, make the number go to the other number. And as always, thanks for watching.